Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where for the past couple of years, Hollywood has used August to try to launch maverick blockbusters. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not. But this month, there was no maverick blockbuster, but a different kind of maverick move from Hollywood. One which could now, it seems, likely lead to real change, and that is getting representation for Asian talent on screen on the board. I can't believe it's working. This is so fantastic. You know, every time we talk about black representation in movies, without fail, I always hear in the comment section from you guys about Asian and Latino talent. And I always wish that I had good news for you. So it's so exciting to have a fabulous whole month of news to discuss a different group moving forward. Oh boy! All right, so now, again, I want to emphasize that this is on screen because for the past few years, Asian talent behind the camera has blossomed, in fact, especially directors and producers. But that on-camera representation still remain non-existent. However, in a single month, several films led by one of those prominent Asian directors, John Chu, so it's so great to see him pay it forward. Some of us have been wondering, with all this Asian talent behind the camera, why hasn't that led to more Asian representation on camera? Well, it finally happened, and they have been able to prove not just that American audiences are open to seeing Asian talent from Asia, right? But Asian American and Asian UK talent as well. Because as we discussed last week, Hollywood ain't gonna do nothing unless there's money to be made in doing it. But now it's been proven that Asian talent definitely will bring in audiences, especially Asian audiences. So what studio or producer isn't going to want to potentially boost their upcoming movie's box office by adding an Asian cast member? I don't know about, again, just as I said last week, I don't know about leads right now. I think that Mulan might be that big game changer, but we're talking strong supporting, maybe co-leads in smaller films. I think you should really look to the way that black film, quote unquote black film, progressed, starting out with Tyler Perry, and then it got all the way to Black Panther, although you could see it accelerated because Mulan's coming up sooner rather than later. Especially now that, and I think this credit should go to quote unquote black films, that they've created the blueprint, right? And so now other demographics can follow that blueprint and again speed up the process. So now remember, as for box office numbers, remember how we wondered last weekend if opening Crazy Rich Asians on a Wednesday might have been a mistake, diluting its riches over 5 days rather than making for a potent 3-day weekend. Well, it survived its first test, managing to still open at number 1 despite that Wednesday debut. But now, that Wednesday opening has helped it create another amazing headline for its second weekend, and that's just a 6% drop. Because remember, it's actually a bigger drop from its entire opening weekend audience, but because they only talk about the 3 days of the weekend proper, it resulted in just a 6% drop. That's amazing. So that number's not totally true, but it's official, it's legit, and it again makes for an absolutely fantastic headline. And headlines are very important to a movie because that incredible hold isn't just due to Warner Brothers' very clever release strategy, but a perfect storm of those amazing headlines from last weekend when it still did manage to get the number 1 spot, right? And no real competition at the multiplex this weekend. So you have a number of people who thought they'd wait for streaming to see this movie, Crazy Rich Asians, or skip it entirely. And they're like, maybe we should attend this party after all, not just because of everything that's happening, right? Everyone's talking about it. Maybe I'm missing something. And also they might be like, well, I really want to go to the movies this weekend, and there's nothing else to see. So it's really incredibly well positioned. And that's important. You can't just have a well-intentioned movie. You have to be very savvy business-wise so that you give it the best chance possible to succeed. And that's exactly what's happening here. Now, it's also important to note that while Asian moviegoers still made up 27% of weekend 2, Caucasian audience members jumped to 48%. That's very good. You want to make sure that you can bring out everybody to, and also that doesn't keep anybody away, right? Is it too niche, which has been the argument in the past. And Hispanic audiences, by the way, jumped to 13%. Now, you might be like, whoa, we never talk about demographic breakdowns for a movie's second weekend, and it is very unusual, which just goes to show that Hollywood wants a really good look at this thing. And so they are paying the companies that do the spot polling to keep an eye on Crazy Rich Asians so that they can plan their future films accordingly and really understand what's happening here. Because this is new, and that's very exciting. For instance, one takeaway here is that still strong Asian turnout, right? You would think maybe all the Asian audience members who wanted to support this would have gone opening weekend. But no, there's still Asian money in play in the United States. And that's very important for Hollywood to realize that there's even more money here than they had initially thought. Very good. Now expect that Crazy Rich Asian sequel. Talk about headlines. That headline certainly helped as well. It was a little misleading, intentionally, I'm sure, from Warner Brothers PR. They said that Crazy Rich Asians was getting a sequel. Well, if you read the fine print, Warner Brothers only gave them to go ahead to start exploring a sequel, but they haven't officially greenlit it. I think they'll probably greenlight it very soon based on, again, this amazing hold. Now, meanwhile, Sony's Searching, starring John Cho, likely wishes it had gone wide this weekend to ride Crazy Rich Asians' coattails. But still, it held on as best it could and managed to get an amazing 40,000 per theater average on just 9 screens. That's on par with Sorry to Bother You from early this year. That's a very good per theater average. And hopefully, Searching will be the new #1 movie this coming Labor Day weekend when it does go wide. And Crazy Rich Asians will fight it for that #1 spot still, but I'm sure it would be happy to pass the crown to it as well. That would still be an amazing #1 and #2 at the box office. Then, keeping in this month's theme, right, our Asian August, it seems the MCU has not just conquered the American box office, but the world's second biggest box office, soon to be the biggest, quite frankly, and that's China. Because much like how Iron Man 3 benefited from being the next Marvel movie after the first Avengers stateside, following up Infinity War is proving to be quite the lifeline for the ailing Ant-Man and the Wasp, which posted the biggest opening weekend ever for a solo Marvel movie in the Middle Kingdom. Bigger than Black Panther. That's amazing. But when you think about it, of course, Chinese audiences would go crazy for the fun gimmick of size manipulation, right? Even though it's not particularly well executed. I'm sure they were tricked by those amazing trailers as well. And of course, there's the introduction of Agent Jimmy Woo, even if he is criminally underused. Now, keep in mind that movies in China tend to be very front-loaded. We have to understand how their box office works as well. So even with this fantastic debut for Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's still likely to finish with around 150. Even, let's say, 175 if we want to be like, never underestimate Marvel, right? While this will likely seal the deal for a third Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, although I thought they should make one anyway, because I see a lot of potential with this character, and again, that size manipulation. And it does finally push the sequel past the first Ant-Man movie worldwide. There's no way, still, even with Japan still to go, that it's going to get to the 700 million bracket or the 800 million bracket where most Marvel movies live these days, at least, right? Now, on that note, I would still get rid of Peyton Reed, all right? Because, I mean, not only did it just make it, and some of you might be like, and some of you have been saying this, but what about Spider-Man Homecoming? You underestimated that movie, Grace. That movie globally, when it was done, almost made 900. There's a huge difference here. And domestically, Spider-Man Homecoming got up to like 324 or something like that. Ant-Man and the Wasp, its domestic number is still way too small. And that's on Peyton Reed. It's actually pretty close domestically to the first Doctor Strange, although I think Scott Derrickson should be allowed one more turn to prove himself as Peyton Reed was allowed. But speaking of Doctor Strange, he got an amazing boost fan-wise from his performance, his all-star performance in Infinity War. He was truly amazing. Although I really liked the first Doctor Strange. I thought, as you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp was too small, too low-key a movie. But as a result, Doctor Strange's sequel is expected to be announced very soon, maybe even September, as director Scott Derrickson has teased. So maybe Ant-Man finally officially joining the Avengers in Avengers 4 will give him an overall boost as well. He could certainly use it, especially on the domestic front. These numbers are bad. If you're a big Marvel fan, God bless you. And if you want to, twist these numbers to make yourself feel better and try to make Marvel look better, I just hope you know in your heart of hearts that the Ant-Man movies are a problem, right? And even this last minute hurrah from China is very nice and shows how much China loves Marvel, but I think it would be not good business for the folks at Marvel and the Marvel fandom not to be like, something here needs to change. And even more than sticking him Ant-Man and the Avengers for A4. Although I do think that Evangeline Lilly's new wasp-like haircut was pretty amazing. All right, so as for the weekend's new entries, Hollywood really did Crazy Rich Asians a solid by opening two clunkers opposite in its second weekend. Now, as comedians have been pointing out lately, if you're going to be offensive, you better also be funny. And with a C- cinema score from audiences, plus a really rotten RT score, Happytime Murders didn't land the funny part. And Melissa McCarthy is proving to have horrible producing skills. Between constantly reteaming with her husband behind the camera to making this Avenue Q ripoff, well, I hope she's happy because she's gotten her box office numbers to the lowest they've ever been since her breakout role in Bridesmaids. And she's had some flops since then, so this is pretty darn bad. And she still has another movie planned with her husband. She needs an intervention, right? But she is set to co-star in The Kitchen, a comic book adaptation from Warner Brothers' New Line, a Widows-like film, to be honest with you, that co-stars Tiffany Haddish and Elizabeth Moss. So the only question there, though, is will that movie bring her up or will she bring it down? I think there's a good chance she could bring it down. And it being so, we'll have to see trailers and stuff like that, but I think copying Widows, we'll see how Widows is received as well. There's a lot of stuff at play there, and I think Melissa McCarthy is I'm sure that the Kitchen maybe wishes she wasn't. Then Global Road's AXL also hit theaters barely. As for the rest of the top 10, the Meg passed the century mark domestically and 400 million worldwide. While Mile 22 and Alpha in their second weekends, remember they also opened last weekend with Crazy Rich Asians. Well, Crazy Rich Asians has left them in the dust because they suffered the biggest drops in the top 10. Now, as for this coming weekend, again, it'll be Searching versus Crazy Rich Asians for that number one spot. And I'm sure Crazy Rich Asians would be perfectly fine, as I said, passing the crown to Searching. But if they can have 3 weeks at number one, its legend will only grow. And then Operation Finale on Wednesday and Kin will also try to make some money over the Labor Day weekend here in the United States, which isn't typically a big movie-going weekend. So that's this week's Movie Math. Thank you for going over the box office with me. I'm curious to hear your own thoughts down below. What do you plan to see this coming weekend? If you haven't seen Crazy Rich Asians yet, will you now? That's going to be a factor going into its third weekend for sure. Also, do you think that Asian August will bring about real change in Hollywood? Also, what changes would you make for Ant-Man and the Wasp 3? And can Melissa McCarthy save her career? Again, share those thoughts down below. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.